Well, again, to start off, thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me. I would like to go ahead and jump in since you said that you started off with building an archive and stories and, talking to people. What
Yeah.
compelled you to start doing that, and how did that influence what you're doing now?
Hmm. Well, I started blogging after I got laid off. How old was I? I was 22, 23-ish. Yeah, I think I was like 23. And I had gotten a job at this like solar panel asset company or whatever, and it felt like my first big girl job. And then I randomly got laid off. And I remember being at that job and being like, wow, this is really boring. I am so much more creative and expressive here. But like, whatever, this is what it takes to be an adult. And then I got laid off, and I had about like 2 months where I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I got an opportunity to bartend at this like New Year's Eve party, and my birthday's on New Year's Day. I got this opportunity to bartend at this New Year's Eve party in Miami, and I was at the bar, and I'd never done that either. Like I was saying yes to everything. I was just like, whatever. Anyway, long story short, this guy and I start chatting, and he's like, what do you want to do with your life?" And I was like, I love to write. I love to write, and I love to talk to people, but I don't really know how to do that. I didn't go to school for this. And because I thought I was going to really go into politics. That was the direction I thought my life was going to go in. And then I graduated, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is actually not what I thought it was going to be." And he was like, "Well, I'm going to make you a logo, and I'm going to make you a website, and just start posting on there. And that's your gift for your birthday." And I was like, "What the heck?" I was like, "Oh, okay. Like that's so random, but also thank you." So I started blogging, and then I realized that I really find joy and purpose in in sharing my platform to other people, or sharing my platform with other people and extending it to other people as a way to funnel the attention that comes to me to other people too, who deserve it and who are compelling and interesting and who are making a difference in some kind of way. And I found that I was feeling more motivated by that than just writing my own thing. And when it was paired in unison, where I was like, some weeks I'll kind of reflect on what's going on in my life, and then other weeks I'll get to do this whole profile and all that stuff. It just made me feel like I had a purpose, and it also encouraged me to be more extroverted and to like reach out to people and interview people. And that was a beautiful way to develop my network as well, because I was meeting folks by basically telling them that they were special and that there was something about them that made me want to sit down with them to explore their mind, their creativity, their art. And then when I started doing that, I was like, I really only want to talk to women. So it allowed me to just like create this community of women around me that were just shining in their own way in the world. And then eventually that pivoted to a podcast, and I started doing it in audio form. And then now it's all kind of come together in a very interesting way. But that's how it began.
Okay, so this does vary. When you emailed me and said this is like very aligned, yes, I totally get it.
Yes.
hmm That's really inspiring. And, I see a lot of my own reasonings for why I do this in your story as well. I think for me, it's that, but it's also, I've always been very interested in history and like
Hmm.
family history, which then led me down this road of like whose history gets told and whose gets not told or gets altered. And so for me, I also do this because I think it's so important that there is a place somewhere in history where people can go and like come back and look and hear what
Yeah.
people are thinking, and specifically women of
Yeah.
color are thinking and
Yeah.
feeling. And because a lot of times I do go and try to find, obviously now there's a lot more stories, firsthand stories from us, but if you
Hmm.
go back far enough, there's very little, if nothing. And that's, I think about all those women who existed back then. And so that's a part of why I do what I do, in addition to what you're also describing.
Oh my God, I'm getting the chills. Um, that is that resonates on a soul level. I haven't been public with this, but I'm working on an intergenerational memoir right now with my grandmother, my only living grandmother. And my paternal grandmother passed away last year, and prior to her passing, she had dementia, and I couldn't get her story. But in 2019, I traveled to the Dominican Republic specifically because I realized that I was going to be the only, or I'm the only person that feels compelled to archive our family's history. And in that process, I learned that my family does not have documentation. My family on both sides historically has come from the the mountains, the campo, in a way where they were so disconnected from mainstream society that they were not accounted for. Not only that, but they did not have the money to have photos taken. They did not have the money to have proper documentation. They were living just with their community, and like when things would happen they would have to figure that out with between themselves. Nobody's birthday is accurate because when the children were born there would only be one person that would come to collect the names of the children that were born during like a 3-month period. And so once I started digging I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And the only way I was able to get history was through oral history. And so I was able to get the names and names and names and names, and I was able to go back 5 centuries. But that's only because I was able to find my paternal grandmother's youngest brother, who at the time was already in his 70s, and she refused to talk about her life. That was the other part too, was like the interesting component that I've been grappling with is that some of our history might be so traumatizing and dark that those that could tell it don't even want to pass it along. And so I feel you on that. Um, I feel I'm getting the chills again because the fact that you said that, and I'm working on this project that I've been emotionally discombobulated by, because I have one living grandparent alive and she's willing to tell me her story, but this pulls back a veil between my grandmother and I, my mother and I, my grandmother and her mother who died. Like it is so much bigger than I think we can fully understand because we don't have all the pieces. But when we start to put the pieces together, oh my God, this is intricate to say the least.
Yeah. What does that feel like to be essentially the the memory, how do I describe it? Not the memory maker, but the person who's carrying it forward. I guess maybe a memory carrier would be the way to say it.
Mm,
Yeah.
I I think I'm starting to believe that it is important now, more important now. But throughout my life, I've always wanted to know why my family is a certain way or why certain things are a certain way. And the approach to my questions were very dismissive for most of my life. And so I think in reclaiming my true self, I've begun to honor the nudges and believe that the reasons why I'm asking certain things and why I feel compelled to do certain things is for it's important. It is not superfluous. It is not silly. It is not any of that. And I think my family historically, I don't know where it comes from, but it just, maybe they've just been so steeped in survival where like they haven't had the luxury or privilege of asking these questions because they're just so in the thick of right now. And so it has felt isolating because I really tried to emphasize. I have tried to emphasize the importance of this. And then when my grandmother died, I was like, do you see why I was trying to do what I was trying to do? Because I knew this day would come and she's dead.
Mm.
She's dead. And there was the whole other layer that was like she was in front of me and she was refusing to speak about her life, which is a whole other point. But for everyone else who was watching, they thought I was crazy for being so. I had my recorder, I had my microphone. Like, this is like already years after I had started audio producing, and I was like, I need to capture her voice, I need to do this, I need to do that. And they thought I was crazy. And now they're starting to understand the importance of it. And at that trip, or on that trip, I had also interviewed my grandfather. And then just a few months later, COVID happens and he dies during COVID. And I actually got some audio of him speaking about his childhood. And he was talking about things my own father had never learned because of their relationship. And so it has felt isolating, but now being I'm being shown by the unfolding of life the importance of past me and like why she wanted to do certain things. And that's why I'm making the decisions that I'm making now. And I don't care if anybody else doesn't see the vision. I understand the vision and I know that this is much bigger than me right now. This is like for the ones that are to come. And if I don't do it, they're gonna feel how I felt. And I have the opportunity to mitigate that. And it is a massive responsibility, but I'm honored to do it. And I'm just now starting to kind of figure out how to deal with the emotional toll that comes with it. That's the new component that I'm like, okay, when you learn all these new things, like how do you synthesize that? How do you share it with your family in a sensitive way? What do you do when you share information that might come might be a catalyst for transformation
Mm.
within other relationships? But it's also now your responsibility to steward that. So that's now what's happening. But again, I'm also honored to be witnessing this because it feels so human. And yeah, it's just like reminding me how interconnected everything is.
Yeah. I, for so long, have thought of stories as resistance, like
Hmm.
telling the stories as a form of resistance against erasure and things like that. But I feel like, at least for me, because for context, last year my great grandpa died at 101.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
and there are so many stories that he had, and I tried to collect as many as I could. And, my grandparents are still alive, and so I'm collecting stories from them too. Um,
Mm.
but obviously, we know that there are, like you described, stories that perhaps are so traumatic that people just shut down, please, and don't want to share. But I think, at least for me, the women in my family, that is something
Mm.
that I definitely have seen firsthand. Thankfully, I am someone, I don't think I have traumatic, I have a few that I don't tell, but, not nearly like those who've come before. But I think now, especially in recent years, I've thought of stories as a way of healing and transformation. And so when you
Yeah.
talk about your process of collecting the stories, and unfortunately, it seems like humans have this tendency to not see the light until people pass away,
Mm.
to then see the importance of the stories and collecting them and all of that. But
Yeah.
I would like to think that the work of collecting those stories is healing, both going back and forward.
Yeah.
Because, I think about, for example, my grandma. My grandma just last year started therapy, at like
Mm.
in her 70s. And she's just now telling the stories that she has held in for so long. She's told me some of the stories, and I helped her find a therapist and all of that stuff.
Wow.
Um, but just the telling of the stories is so important. And like, I think there's a release in telling the stories, but I think there's also a release when you hear and collect the stories. Like,
Mm.
I think it goes both, like, goes back and forth both ways.
I agree. I mean, you carry the energy of your grandmother in you, like your mother was in your grandma and you were in your mother, and whatever your grandmother was carrying when she was carrying your mother is energetically still tied to your own unfolding. It's tied to your mother's unfolding. And so it feels like twine around a family. And then when the person says the thing that they haven't said, it's like they're cutting the twine. They're letting everybody be free. And I'm also somebody who really believes in the impact of energy and uh the spiritual nature of all of this too. And it feels, I wouldn't say it's a curse when there are secrets that are held back, but it is something. It is a limitation that's put on self and those that come after because they're not living in truth. And so they can't make the decisions that they make from a place of knowing all the factors. And that creates a disservice over time. Even the smallest things, it creates a disservice for how people raise their children, for how they view their parents, for how they view their grandparents. The Even the ugly things, I believe, need to be put on the table because then even in that, we can hold each other in the healing that comes from the trauma, and that one person doesn't have to hold it alone. And then they get to have a visual, they get to have proof that they're not alone in carrying this thing, even though for so long they believe that they must.
Mhm.
And oh, yeah, I'm very curious to see what life can look like when more of us, you know, hold hold on to our elders with gentility and are like, you can say the things that you have held on to and you can let that go before you die. You don't have to die with that.
Yeah, I literally had that conversation with my grandma. She happened to be in the hospital. She was doing real like we almost were not sure. We were not sure if she was gonna make it for a bit.
Mm.
But I literally sat with her and I was like, you can just you ever just seen, I mean, I think we just seen someone, you can just see the heaviness on them, like you can
Yeah,
tell when people are holding things. I've had
yeah,
times in my life where I've held on to things and I can look myself in the mirror and had a hard time looking myself in the mirror and I can see that I'm not
yeah,
okay. But I told her,
yeah,
I was like, I do not want you to leave this world like, I want you to leave this world whenever your time is with as little on you as possible. So if that means
yeah,
you sit here in this hospital room and you tell me the story. I'm willing to hold it
yeah,
for you. But if and
yeah,
when you get out of here, I'm just like, I will make it my life's mission to like find you someone that you can talk to and work
yeah.
through. And, I guess it's been like 6 months now, and you
Wow.
can literally see the difference. It's something
Yeah.
really beautiful. I feel like it's really powerful. And I also believe in energy. I really believe strongly in, ancestral, all of that stuff.
Hmm.
And I like to think of, like, when I see her, I think about, like, my great grandma, like her mom. And I'm like, I hope that she is, like, I hope that I am being a good future ancestor by helping.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
yes. Yes, absolutely. You are ushering a path for your grandmother to seek liberation within herself. That is sacred. That is, oh my God, like what a testament to the love that you have for your grandmother. And to your point, they say like it's like anytime a person heals themselves, they go 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. Like, by your grandmother speaking aloud the things that she hasn't spoken aloud, she is embodying the act that maybe her mother didn't do or didn't get a chance to. It's not, it's bigger, it's bigger than you, it's bigger than your grandmother. It is, it's a whole web. It's a whole web that is liberated just by speaking and by telling by saying the thing. And that is just incredible that she's doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're all very happy for her. Because I think for years, I will say, and if she hears this, she's not going to take offense to it. She has been somewhat of a problematic figure in our family for
Hmm.
as long as I can remember. And I come from a
Hmm.
line of women who my mom had issues with her mom had issues with,
Yeah.
like, it goes back.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but in me hearing her story, and in a lot of ways, because me and my mom could have been the same way, I've just made it
Mm.
a point to try to, and we're still working through some things, but
Hmm.
it's been helpful in hearing their stories because I can then be like, oh, I can see how you got here based off of these things. And I can see
Yeah.
how, you trying to fix in whatever way or bypass in
Yeah.
whatever way has gotten you to do these things to get to here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's complex.
It is complex. It is complex. I went to therapy with my mom and I did couple family counseling for like a year and a half, 2 years ago, like starting 2 years ago.
Mm,
And my mother had me as a teenager, and we historically have had an extremely tumultuous relationship. And within those sessions, I was like, oh my gosh, like we're breaking the cycle. Like this could have continued. I was ready to not have my mother in my life. We were already very distant, and I eventually was like, something happened where I was like, we either fix this or we're just not gonna be like we're not gonna be able to be a family in the way that I hoped we would. And a year and a half of deep work and speaking aloud the things that I had never said, the things that she had never said. And now here I am in my mother's home, after leaving this city mostly because of her. She kicked me out. And so at 24, I went and I was like, well, it's time to go figure out my life. And I'm boomeranging back. And this would not have happened if we wouldn't have gone to therapy and like really said the most difficult things ever. Things that memories that were in the chamber back here in my mind that I had not even confronted since I was like a child. And so it's possible. It is so possible. Like all of it is so possible. The fact that your grandma's in therapy in her 70s is like, oh my God, what a beautiful, beautiful undertaking for her and for all of you, because your mother's going to see her mother in a different way. You're going to see your mother in a different way. All of you.
Listen, my mom, until it was around, I think my grandma had been in therapy for about 3 or so months. But until that point, like they had not talked to each other in some years.
Wow.
And like I remember growing up as a child, loving both of them, but feeling that tension even as like a
Yeah.
6, 7 year old. And that's a very uncomfortable
Yeah.
feeling. And especially when you can't talk about it, then you kind of internalize it in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
I told them both I had to go to therapy because of both of y'all, but they actually like reconciled last year. And I think it's in part because my grandma is doing her therapy and my
Wow.
mom doing hers. Um, so it's been incredible. And I think that's really incredible that your mom was willing to go to therapy. I think that I think that people our age and younger, like it's normal for people to go to therapy,
Yeah.
like it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to therapy. Sometimes I feel like it's like a badge of honor that you go. But
Yeah.
for
Yeah. It's like
like,
I'm working on myself.
yeah,
Yeah.
but for people our parents' age and older, that when people do that, like that's some real bravery for them to go and
Yeah.
do that. Because if it's, I think, my grandma was like, until I went, I thought that only like crazy people went to therapy. Like I thought it was an
Yep.
indictment to go.
Yep.
Um, so it's incredible that your mom went, because I've never done family counseling with my mom, but for you to have gone
Hmm.
for that long with yours, that's really impressive and incredible.
Yeah, I think so too. When she said yes, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And I already had a therapist on hand that I had been trying to get us to go to for a long time. And she wasn't available for a while. Like she just wouldn't respond to my emails. And then when my mom said yes, I reached out to her again and she's like, oh, I have availability now. So like everything lined up. And then we we concluded our therapy, our family therapy, and then she continued on with her. So now she is on her own therapy journey, and I'm like, thank God. This is beautiful the way that it all lined up. So yeah,
I
shout
love
out
that.
to to people saying yes and choosing to do the hard thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, so you mentioned that she kicked you out. Where did you go at? Like how long ago was that? And like where did you go after that?
So I went back to the Bronx. So I was born in the Bronx in the early 90s, and then my mother remarried and she brought me to Miami when I was about to turn 6. And so the majority of my family is still in New York, and the Bronx was always home for me. It always felt like home. It always felt like the one place that my identity wasn't questioned and that I just fit, even though the Bronx historically uh, has been relatively gritty and it wasn't necessarily like easy, and my family does not live in luxury in the Bronx at all. It was always where I felt like I was safe. And so when my mom was basically like, you and I will get along better when you no longer live in my home, I was like, all right, I'm out of here. And I went to the Bronx. I went to my grandma's house. And so I lived with her for 6 months, and then I got my apartment in Flatbush, and that was my first apartment on my own, and that was really cool. I That was a really interesting time in my life. Like I really just I found myself. I was in the city, I was back in New York, I was producing my podcast, I was around all these artists and all these incredible people. And then after that, um at the time I was with somebody, and we decided to move to Austin after the pandemic, once the pandemic began. So I moved to Austin for a little bit. Then I lived in Atlanta, and then at 29 I got a divorce, and then I decided to move to Mexico with my dog, and then I just moved back to the States 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Then this gives me that's a lot, and I love that for you. What made you choose Mexico? And then also what compelled you to move back to the States when I feel like so many people right now are trying to leave?
hmm hmm So the reason I moved to Mexico, one of my best friends at the time, she told me that I should go to Mexico City to just be inspired. Like I was working on my first manuscript, and she was like, I think you would love Mexico City. Just go and like just feel it out. I think it's just going to energize you. And so I was already planning on going there for my 30th birthday. And uh that summer, every like my whole life began to unravel, and I knew I was going to leave Atlanta, and I was like, where the hell do I want to go? Like I could go anywhere. I'm free. Where the hell do I want to go? And then I was like, I was already planning on going to Mexico City. I might as well go try it out. And then I was like, why don't I just write the book there? So I told myself I'd live there for 6 months, and then ended up staying for close to 4 years. And so that's how it all happened. It was really because of a friend of mine who knew me and was like, I think this place would resonate with you. And then now I'm in Miami in the midst of this shit show. And I know why people are like, why would you do that? But the gag is, you can't stay too far away from the madness. It's going to find you regardless. And I've been away and I've been safe and whatever that means. But everybody that I love is in the fucking belly of the beast. What good is it for me if I'm over there by myself safe when everybody that I love is here? Excuse me. And so I was like, no, I want to be in it
Yeah.
with everybody. So here I am.
I identify with that in a lot of ways. So we lived in Atlanta. We just moved back to our hometown last spring, but we lived in Atlanta for like 7, 8 years. And I think I've got one aunt and uncle that live there and some cousins, but the majority of our family is here, in Alabama. And so in a lot of ways it's kind of the same. Like why would you move to Alabama? You lived in the city. But one, I think, it's just been nice to be closer to family. I feel that a lot of, and I don't know if it's just like an intuitive thing that people are doing, but I just feel like I know of a lot of people who are moving back to be near family. I feel like we all just kind of sense that there's like a need to go back home. Um, and so, yeah, I've thought about that of like, oh, we could just like leave. And there's a part of me that does want to leave very, very, very badly. But like you said,
Hmm.
there, I don't think I think we will all get through this, but I don't think that any of us will get through this without having been touched by it, whatever
Oh,
shapes out.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the only way is through. Like we have to go through it to get to the other side. And like I don't why go through it alone?
Mm,
And also our chances for making it are way higher when we're together.
yeah.
And so yeah, I wrote a whole book about community and all of that, and I wrote about all of this, and I was in Mexico, and I was like, you wrote all of this, and look at what's happening over there. And you're over here, comfortable. Oh, you live in Mexico. It's which, no judgment there. A lot of my close friends over there are Americans, are Black Americans specifically. And um, I just felt in my spirit that I I I needed to retreat to go through the things that I went through individually and to develop my own self and to discover myself. But it was always as a way and as a means to figure out how to come back and
Mm,
show up in community as my full self intact, not to stay away. And the isolation of it all. Sorry for all the nails, the dog nails that are clamoring. They're playing in the background, but
oh, I don't hear
um
anything. You're good.
oh, perfect. My mom's chihuahuas are having a ball behind me right now. Um, yeah, I just always knew that like it was a means to come back. I needed to travel, I needed to experience all of that, but I needed to come back and I needed to showcase or share or teach whatever back here. And yeah, I mean, now my sister has two kids and my mom is here. It's just there's just so many things that I'm like, I need to be physically present to be able to influence how all of this goes. And not that I can control many factors, but at the very least, I'm not talking about what's happening on the phone. I'm physically here, I'm seeing it, I'm being a witness to what's happening, and I'm creating my own data points and in the context of politics too, like I have a book club where I'm talking about all of these radical concepts and ideas, and I'm naming people who have made a difference in their communities, and I'm focusing on all of these ways that we can still have hope and we can persevere because we can look at history and connect to the people who have done the things that have made it more possible for us to be here, but then I'm in the safety of living in another country. Like for me, because of who I am and because of what I care about and because of the work that I do, it just felt like too much of a contradiction to be away, you know? Yeah. So now I'm back and I got back on January 1st and it has been everything has ramped up, it seems like since I got back here. Since I got back, everything has just magnified and intensified. And I don't know. It- Some moments I'm like, damn, girl, like you really committed to this. Like you really could have just stayed out there. But I'm like, regardless of how this unfolds, I'm never gonna regret the fact that I'm here. If we're gonna be in the trenches, we're gonna be in the trenches together. I don't want to be over there by myself while everybody's, trying to figure it out. Like I have thoughts, I have solutions, I have a very strong character and a personality and a spirit that moves things and impacts space. And so I want to infuse that energy into the spaces that need it most right now. And I can't do that online completely virtually. I have to physically be here. So, okay, let's see what happens.
What you're describing reminds me a lot of, I just couldn't help but think about like James Baldwin coming back for the civil
Yeah,
rights
I've
movement.
actually been reading him more.
Yes.
I just picked up Giovanni's Room because of that, because I'm trying to connect with that energy of feeling like you need to be in exile for a little bit or you need to go find yourself. But with that thing, that energy that compels you to be like, yeah, but you still got to go and face it. You still have to come back. Like the journey isn't complete if you stay away.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you, would you have anticipated that before writing the book, or even, I guess, yeah, before writing the book, while you've been like working on ways of building community, would you have anticipated that it would be so timely like now? Because the book
Honestly, yeah.
itself, I feel, is even more and more
I did
timely.
feel it.
Yeah.
I did feel it. And that was another moment too where I felt isolated because I felt like I was trying to talk to agents and trying to get publishers to sign me to publish a book that I felt was urgent, but at the time it didn't feel like the energy that I was tapping into of urgency was available or palpable to other people. And so this is again the spiritual component about everything. As time unfolds, I'm like, oh, this is like something is guiding me. They're my guides, my ancestors, the collective consciousness, I don't know what. But when I kind of look back at the nudges that I have gotten, that I have received, some of them are light, and then like some of them are like, hey, you should look at this. Other ones are like, stop everything right now and do this now. And you know, the situation with my publisher didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. My book is not currently in print anymore. I don't know how many copies are even left. Um, but I did it. I did it. I put the words out, and the thousands of books that have been able to float out have found their way to the people that needed it at the moment. And it has not been a lucrative endeavor by any means, but my God, do I feel like I can trust my spirit now. I trust the unfolding of things, even if I don't exactly know what the next steps are. I know that when there's urgency and when spirit is telling me that I have to commit to a certain project, I know I have to do it. That's how I feel about the project I have with my grandmother right now. This one's a little bit differently. This one's unfolding a bit differently because emotionally, I'm having a hard time holding the intensity of this, which in with my other project was different. Like it was an emotional experience and it was a lot to hold, but I was able to just like create a very rigid schedule, writing schedule, and I committed to it. With this one, it is the ebbs and flows are way more profound, and the gaps between when I'm interviewing my grandma and when I'm writing are longer, but I'm also realizing that it's found me at a time where I've been going through yet another massive transformation of like letting go of an old life, of letting go of that chapter, moving back to the city that I've fled, and like being in the home of my mother when the last time I lived with her, she was kicking me out. Like there's just like a lot, there's a lot here. Um, and so I realized that for me to fully commit to the project, I have to create some more stability for myself so that I can welcome the chaos that will come from the stories and be able to not run away from the writing. But it's coming. Like I feel it. But could I have anticipated the book club being what it has become? No. Could I have anticipated that we would be at this point in society? Yes, unfortunately, I did. And I think over time, I have been very candid with those nudges about not being naive about what was coming because it was inevitable. This has to happen for us to get to the other side. There has to be a reckoning. The truth, that what we're talking about, the truth, the stories, all of it, it has to be displayed for everyone to understand. Black folks have been known, indigenous folks have been known, immigrants of color have been known what was going on here. But everyone has to see what's happening so that we cannot lie, or so that certain people cannot lie their way out of the truth. Now it's on a global scale. Now everybody's looking at America. Everyone's a witness to what's happening right now. You have people across every single continent of the world talking about what's happening in Minnesota right now, about what's happening in Washington, D.C. So now everybody is a memory keeper.
Hmm.
And so when we get onto the other side of this, they can't, regardless of whether they try to rewrite the history books or whatever, the history books out there are going to tell the truth of what happened. And so, you know, in the meantime, we just have to hold each other tight and we have to figure out how we are being asked to show up in this moment. Um, and I think that that also was necessary and is necessary. I think a lot of folks forgot that they have to be tapped in. They have to be tapped in, and you can't expect people to show up for you if you aren't showing up for other people. And so now folks, I think, realize that, and it took extreme circumstances for people to realize and remember, re-remember that they also have to be committed to other people. But I think that on the other side of this will be closer because now we're understanding it's like it's really us versus them or them slash the machine, because now it's like technology and AI and all of these weapons and all of that. Like we can combat all of it, but it's gonna take all of us to come together in a real way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I have been doing a lot of reading. I actually have a book called it's this book called The 272. Um,
Mm.
but it's basically this woman wrote this book about my family's history, which
Ooh.
goes like all the way like way, way back, like 1600s with the
Wow.
matriarch of the family. And
Wow.
so I've been doing a lot of like studies into our family history and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think what's been helping me kind of stay calm. I do go through periods where I'm like, I feel ramped up in the energy, but for me, it's what's helping me is I read books like that. Um, I did go to a local bookstore in Atlanta
Mm.
and I did buy the book because you had that really amazing series on it. Um,
Amazing.
and reading other parts, like pieces of history to see how other
Yeah.
people manage. It just reminds me that like this is not new. People have talking to people in my own family, especially like my great grandpa, to be 101,
Yeah.
he saw some things, and
Yeah.
lived through some things.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that there's a part of me that's like, I wish I didn't have to live through
Oh, of
this.
course.
I'm like, you know what? It's not that I wish I didn't have to live through it. It's like I feel like I've got a front row seat. I feel like in a movie theater, maybe I don't even have a front row seat. I'm like a supporting character in the theater,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, you are literally you and I, we are actively a part of history that
Hmm.
is unfolding right now. And it never had to be this way. That's the shit, you know. It never had to be this way. And that is so frustrating because so many people have sacrificed their lives. So many people have committed their lives to advancement. So many people have proposed solutions, and their efforts have not gone in vain. Like obviously it's made a difference, but because there was a whole subset of the population that wasn't dealt with as they should have been dealt with, Now now we have to go back to then go forward. And it's always been that, right? Like back forth. But right now we're taking a big step back. And it needs to happen so that we can deal with the roots that have been rotting all this time. But once we excavate those roots and once we really get to the bottom of all of this and we go forward, my hope is that when we go forward next time, we're really going forward in a way where we can set the next generation up to not have to deal with this again.
Mhm.
But it never had to be this way. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
What has
Mm.
been giving you hope and what's been keeping you inspired through it all? Because I feel like even just we're on, it's January 15th. It feels like it's just like it's already like 6 months in.
Yeah. It feels like December 2026. Like, what? This year needs to be over. Like, nope, buckle in. It just started. What has been giving me hope? Mm, people have been enraging me, but people have also been giving me hope. It's a duality. I I see how much people do care. I see how people are willing to show up for people that they don't know, but that they recognize their humanity in, you know? Um, Art is giving me hope. I think there's a renaissance happening culturally where people are understanding that their talents are not only needed in the moment, but it's what is giving them a desire to continue existing. On the other side of so many people being nihilistic or, yeah, just like leaning into the nihilism of it all, there are people being like, well, if I am going to live, I'm going to do something. And it's really interesting to see what that something is becoming for people. And because the stakes are so high, I think a lot of folks are realizing like that they have to get out of their own way because like their insecurities or whatever in the grand scheme of things really don't matter. If you're not going to do it now, then when are you going to do it? Just see what happens. Just put it out there. Just create the thing. Who like look at the world, go for it. Say the thing, create the art, resist in the way that makes sense for you. And I think there are just like many more people tapping in and being like, you know what, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm finally gonna make the thing. And right now we need solutions on every single front. And so I'm being inspired by the fact that I'm witnessing people just share it and propose the things and be more resistant to the, I don't know, like the neutrality of everything, the neutrality in color, the neutrality in politics, the neutrality in like, no, you have to take a stand, you have to claim a position, and you have to be yourself. So go figure out who you are, what you don't like, and what you don't like, say something about it. And and don't blend in, like I think people are realizing that conformity is just not, it's not worth it. Corporate jobs aren't stable. The safety that we all thought we had when it came to our careers or politics or all of that, we're realizing it's all an illusion. So if it's all an illusion, then what are you gonna do? You might as well figure out how to be your most authentic, radical self, whatever that looks like. And for however long we're here, let's be here. Let's have fun. Let's resist. Let's speak our minds. Let's find our people. Let's discover our gifts. Let's discover how we're meant to be in community, um, and figure out how to pool our resources together and rewrite this shit. And yeah, understand that like this society is malleable. This is all a reflection of like what we consent to. And so we have to decide what we're not consenting to and then make it clear that we don't consent to that. However that looks. It doesn't always look like being at a protest.
Hmm.
Sometimes that looks like with what you wear, with what you eat, with who you support, with what parties you go to, with what venues you support, with what artists you put your money behind, with what you share on the internet, with how you show up to take care of the babies, of the children, like what you're educating them with or on. It's all of it. It's like on all fronts, we just need to rewrite this. And I just feel like I'm excited about the fact that people are realizing that they get to be a part of the rewriting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
incredibly inspiring. And I think for me, because there have been periods of time in these, especially these last few weeks, where I've been like, it's harder and harder to have hope because I can see what I think I can see what's coming, it's just not
Yeah.
looking good. But I kind of counterintuitively reminded myself, like, I have to have some type of hope if I'm working on art or if I'm working on projects or if I'm sitting here scheduling interviews
Yeah.
with people. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
don't plan for things in the future if you don't have some belief or some hope that you're going to be there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You already know. You
Hmm.
already know. There's a part of you that already knows. Like there is another world. There is something else waiting for us.
Yeah.
Um, so keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, you too. I guess my last question would be, where can people find you? What projects do you want to, share for people to look up? Things like that.
Where can people find me? I am all over the internet at the moment. So for the TikTok folks, I have a book club page called Awake Book Club. That's on TikTok. I also have my personal page that I don't post on very much, but it's Cat Lantigua. And then on Instagram, same thing, Cat Lantigua on Instagram, and then Awake Book Club for educational content. And then my podcast, Chats with Kat, I'm hoping and praying that I get to produce a new season this year, but there are over 100 episodes on Chats with Kat, and that's a podcast that I started producing in 2017, all about self-actualization and overcoming fear and paving the way for our soul's purpose to shine through. That is my tagline. And so that's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and that kind of thing. And then I also have a YouTube channel where I share journaling sessions. So I basically hold space for folks to journal with me if they choose to dedicate some time to writing. So that is Cat Lantigua. Yeah, that's the page. So that's that.
Cool.
Oh, and then my book. I have a book. I have a book. The PDF, the ebook is on my website, catlantigua.com. And then I do believe that there might be a few copies on Amazon, or there's an indie bookstore here in Miami called Dalezine that has a few copies. God willing, I get out of this contract with my current publisher and I sign with a new one, and the book can go back into print. So that is underway, but in the meantime, folks can read it virtually, digitally, if they choose to put it on their Kindle. And that's called
Cool.
Build It and They Will Come.
Great. I was like,
I'm like
yeah, I was
I
waiting
don't
for you
pitch
to name
myself
the,
sometimes.
yeah, I was waiting for you to name the book, but I was like, I'll just link it in there because I'm like,
Girl, sometimes I'm that's something I'm working on right now is like summarizing what I do and what I have done more succinctly, because sometimes I'm just like I do a lot of things, and I don't know, it's like choose your adventure, I guess.
well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. It's an absolute delight to meet you.
Likewise, thank you for taking the time and thank you for inviting me to be here with you.
Yeah.